Jesus understood that when it comes to following him and what he wants for us in this life is an understanding that we're going to be busy, but that we shouldn't be hurried. And that when we can slow down and even take a deep breath, that we can experience all of the goodness that this life has to offer. All right, did all those to-dos make anybody anxious? Did you feel it in your boat? Yeah, the front row was like, yeah, we did not like that boo bumper package. Yeah. Hey, I'm really excited about today's message because often, and I feel like this has been true throughout my opportunity to teach as a pastor, there's so many times where I feel like I want to talk about a certain topic, and as I'm going through the studying for it and writing it, it's like, man, this is just like a message for me that I get to share with you. And today's topic that we're moving into, especially as we move into this new year, is something that I'm working on. And I am far from perfect. All of you know that. And this topic today is just something that I'm working on, that I'm wrestling through. And I think so many of us are wrestling through as well, because all of us can identify and agree with, no matter where you're at in your life, that we are very, very busy. There's so many things to do. There's different ways that we organize our schedules. I joke that my life is run one Google notification at a time. It's just like bing, and I'm like, oh, I have 10 minutes to be at the next place that I need to be at. My Google Calendar tells me when to go home, when to eat. It reminds me to call my mom. You know, there's so many things that Google can help us with, right? Because all of us are so busy. Maybe you're a sticky note person. At my last church, I worked with somebody who was a sticky note person. They were all over her desk, you know, that was her way of keeping things organized. There's so many different ways that we can keep track of all of the things that we have to do. And you have a lot to do. There are so many things that are on our schedules, and especially those of you that have kids, you're just in such a busy time of life right now where it just feels like you're a school bus all of a sudden, you know, and you're just taxi and ferry people all over the place. There's so many things on your agenda. If you're in college, you're crazy busy right now. You know, it's like, do we study or do we enjoy the life that I'm currently living? Like, it feels like we're always making trades because we're so incredibly busy. And you've probably had conversations like I often have with people. I feel like I say this all the time. You know, someone asks me, hey, John, how are you doing? And I'll say, oh, you know, we're great. Everything's going really well. But man, we're so busy right now, right? We're busy, but we're good. We're busy, but we're good. And then I normally follow up by saying, but if we can just get to like next week, you know, like, or in a couple weeks, everything, then we won't be busy anymore. Anybody else guilty of this? Yeah, you know, and it's like, and then we get to the next week and it's like, why do I keep lying to everybody about this? Like, I'm just always busy. And I have a friend who's many years older than me. And I just want to, as an aside, if you're under the age of 35 in this room, I want to just challenge and encourage you. If you do not have a person in your life who is 15 to 30 years older than you are, that is investing in your life in some way, that has a front row seat to your life, you are missing out on some of the richness of relationship and investment and wisdom. It has been such a huge thing in my life to have men in my life that are older than me that can speak life and wisdom and pull me by my collar when I need to be pulled by my collar and just call me into attention. There's something so good about multi-generational relationships. And for me, this one specific guy is someone who I keep in good touch with, and he is about 25 years older than me, and he's just incredibly wise. And I told him recently, he was asking, how my wife Ashley and I were doing, and I was like, man, we're doing good, but man, we're so busy right now. And he just kind of, he's a slow talker, and he goes, He goes, well, you're always going to be busy. And I said, well, I'm really busy right now, And he goes, let me ask you a question. And he asked me this question. He said, are you busy or are you hurried? Are you busy or are you hurried? And when he asks questions, I like to respond quickly, and try to take a deep breath and go, okay, well, tell me what you mean by that. And he told me about this book that he had read and, how he had learned that busy and hurried are two different things. That busy is a state of our schedule. That when it comes to being busy, it's about having a ton of things on our to-do list and a ton of things on our calendar, and that this is inevitable. We are all going to be busy. There's all going to be things that we have to do. He joked, he's like, I'm retired and I'm still busy. He's like, I still have lots of things to do. I feel like I don't have enough time in the day. He said, hurried is different though. Busy is a state of our calendar, whereas hurried is a state of the soul. And man, when he shared that simple idea when we were sitting at breakfast, I was like, oof. Maybe I'm both. Maybe I'm really busy, and as a result of being really busy and kind of having some things in my life in misalignment, I'm also hurried. I'm also in this place in my life where maybe I'm not giving some of the things that are really important to me the time that they need to slow down enough. I've gotten to this place where I have this AI manager that manages all of the text messages and emails that I get because I get so many text messages and so many emails, and it doesn't work well, I have found out recently, so I miss stuff all the time. I mean, it's just the worst. And I'm not just busy, I'm exhausted and hurried as a result of all of the things that are going on in my life. And this is probably true for you as well. Busy's not a bad thing. You can be busy and you can be productive. We can get a ton of stuff done. And I am extremely productive. I get so much done. But while it's true that we can be busy and be productive, we cannot be hurried and be present. And some of us are experiencing that. Maybe you experienced that this Christmas where you were off of work for a little bit and you had some time to sit and relax, but it felt like your brain couldn't relax. It felt like you needed to be doing something else, or that there was an email that you needed to check out, or you're scrolling on your phone, or man, why is it so quiet right now? And you're like, did I have lots of Red Bull today? What is going on? And we just can't sit and just breathe in the oxygen around us because we have to have something to do. It's not just about being busy. It's about this posture of our heart and our soul that feels like there has to be something for us to do. This shows up in my life in a lot of different ways. But one of the bad habits that I have created is the moment that I get home, I turn on the TV. And I'm not watching it. I just need some noise playing in the background because I literally don't know what to do in the quiet. When I come home, I need a thing to keep me going so I can keep doing the next thing. And that's not a bad thing on its own, but it's the totality of distractions and the need for my soul to have things going on around it for me to be okay. It's so incredibly easy for us to confuse hurriedness for busyness or busyness for hurriedness, and we just feel like our calendar is the reason why we're exhausted. And maybe that's true for you. Maybe your calendar is the reason why you're exhausted. But it could also be true that the reason why your soul just feels weary and tired is because you are living a hurried life. And you're missing out on the opportunity to be present. That when you're sitting across from your kid and they're telling you, and then, the and then stories, and then, and you're like, today, Junior, and they're like, Mom, did you hear the part of the story I told you? And you're like, you were telling me a story, right? When we have this hurried mind and this hurried posture in our soul, we are not able to be present. We're not able to be present with our spouse or to be present with our kids. We're not able to just be in the moment. And so this is the number one reason why it feels like life is going so much quicker than you want it to. It feels like days and years and minutes are just flowing through your fingers like sand. And you're like, I feel like it was just Christmas. And we just had Christmas again. How is it that there's 2 Christmases in the span of 3 months? How does that happen? And it just feels like you can't slow it down. And there's this thing in us that becomes a little bit desperate. And we begin to blame that level of exhaustion on our busyness. But for all the top performers in the room, the type A, super red on the temperament thing, I'm going to help you with this because you're already going, I don't like this message. I don't like where it's going. Busy isn't bad, okay? We're going to all say it together. Being busy isn't bad. One more time. Being busy isn't bad. But hurried and hurry is our problem. One of my favorite authors, he was an incredible Christian man. He passed away a few years ago, wrote a ton of great books, some of my favorite books. If you're looking for a new author to kind of click follow on Amazon, his name is Dallas Willard. He's written a bunch of really, really great stuff. And in one of his books, he talks about the idea of hurriedness. He talks about just this posture of our hurried soul. And he has this to say about hurry. Hurry, especially in today's times and culture, hurry is the great enemy of spiritual life in our day today. Because ultimately, it's not just about our time and how we manage our time, our ability to be present, not just with the people that we love and that we care about and that God's given us to surround ourselves with. Hurriedness, that posture of soul hurriedness, pulls us away from our ability, not just to be present with those we love that are here, but with our Heavenly Father himself. There's something about this hurried posture of our soul that makes us miss out on the time that we need to slow down and to be able to hear, as the Old Testament describes it, the cool, calm, quiet voice of God. We understand it today as the Holy Spirit, that when we're so busy and we have, our AirPods in and there's always music going, I don't know what it is about high school kids, but I think, and I love high school kids, headphones are permanently sutured to their head. Like they just can't be anywhere without headphones and music playing. There's always stimulus. There's always something going on and going on. There's something that has our attention and it's distracting us, and we're missing out on the opportunity, not just to be present with those around us, but to be able to experience the presence of God. I agree with Dallas Willard because I see it in my own life that hurry is the great enemy, not just of this ethereal spiritual life, but of my spiritual life in our day-to-day. And there's this really incredible story that we find in Luke, a true story, an account of the life of Jesus in Luke chapter 10. And it's a famous story in Scripture. And I know that sometimes it feels like, I've actually had some people say this for you, I feel like you talk about the same thing a lot. I'm like, my job is to give a book report every week on the same book. Hard to come up with new content, folks, right? So ultimately, you've probably heard this story before. It's about two sisters named Mary and Martha. And we're not exactly sure how Jesus ended up, in their home. But what we know is that Jesus is out doing his ministry, and he gets invited into the home of Mary and Martha. And as anybody would, they go about busily getting ready for the fact that they have company. And we'll pick up kind of where Luke and what Luke wants us to understand about the story, but you know that this is true. When someone comes into your home, there's all these things that you want to do and things you feel like you need to do. My mom is the sweetest, calmest, kindest person on the face of the earth. She is a saint, except for the 30 minutes before someone's showing up at the house. That little lady can run around like nobody's business and slam things. And my siblings and I, all my brothers, we only wore sports shorts growing up. My mom's like, boys, decorum, put on shirts, and everybody's running around because people are showing up. Like that's the context in which Mary and Martha are at. Jesus, this incredible rabbi that everybody had been talking about, has shown up at their home. And Martha is running around and she's so incredibly busy getting ready to prepare a meal for Jesus. So this is where we pick up in Luke chapter 10. You're welcome to read along with me on your phone, or if you brought your Bible with you. I'm going to read this part of the text and then we're going to teach through it on the screen. This is Luke chapter 10, verses 38 through 42. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary, who also sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me. Jesus replies, Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. Growing up, when I heard this story, we were taught about it, when I was growing up in church, the understanding that I had at least was that Martha was the busy one and Mary was just the lazy one kind of sitting around, that she wasn't a part of this. What I've learned over the years is that if we look to kind of the earliest text of this, the word also is inserted into what Mary chose to do. In fact, there are some translations, including the one that I just read, where also is in there, to make sure that we understand that Mary was helping her sister with the preparations, but chose also to spend time with Jesus. That there's this distinction between Martha and Mary, that Martha was only focused on the preparation. She was only focused on what we would assume would be an elaborate meal and making sure that everything was just so. But Mary chose to both help her sister and also spend time with Jesus. In Luke 10, verse 40, we pick up what I just got done reading, and this is what Luke writes. Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. There was plenty of things she had to do. Her to-do list in preparing a meal for Jesus was very long. But Jesus says to Martha in the following verse, Martha, Martha, you are so worried and upset about many things. There are so many things that you're focused on. When I read this, I'm assuming that Jesus is probably watching Martha scurry all through the house, and she's preparing every appetizer she can, and she's making sure it's multi-course, right? And we've got the dessert that we would never make for anybody, but we're doing when company's in town. At our house, we got so excited when company showed up. You knew you were going to eat good if somebody was coming in, and we wanted to be like, we never eat like this unless you're here, you know? And that's what Martha's doing. She's trying to put her best foot forward for Jesus. And Jesus is watching Martha scurry around. And maybe Mary helps a little bit. And then she comes as a good host would and spends time with the company of the home. And this is so frustrating for Martha, that her sister would be doing both, that she would be spending time focused on spending time with Jesus instead of just helping her get it all done. Do you ever feel that way? Like there's just so much to do and I can't focus on anything else until I get it all done. I think you and I can empathize with Martha in that. But Jesus says, hey, you're so focused on many things. There's so much you have to do. But hey, if I'm being really honest with you, there's really only a few things that are necessary. And then Jesus almost catches himself and says, you know what? Actually, there's really only one. There's really only one thing that's ultimately really necessary. And Jesus answers, well, what would that thing be, Jesus? In the following verse, he says, Mary has chosen what is better. What's better than just being busy and being hurried and running around and scurrying around. Mary has chosen something better, and it will not be taken away from her. Jesus in this moment is trying to help us and definitely help Martha understand that in the midst of our busyness, we can miss out on the whole purpose of why we're doing what we're doing. The whole reason that Martha was running around like a crazy person, getting everything ready, was because she had company, but she missed out on spending time with the company. The whole reason she was busy was Jesus, and yet she missed out on the whole thing. And this is so true for me and you, especially when we have this posture of hurriedness in our hearts. In the midst of having a million things on our to-do list, we missed out on just being able to be present. In fact, all the things that Jesus wants for us, the fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, gentleness, kindness, the whole list, they're all incompatible with hurry. Especially the first three, love, joy, and peace. They're incompatible with hurry. When we're hurried, when we're moving quickly, when we're moving on to the next thing, we have no ability to slow down and to really listen and to love our kids or to love our spouse well. When we're just on to the next task, when we're in a posture of hurry, we miss out on the opportunity to love and, oh, by the way, to receive it. When we're hurried, when we go on vacation and we're all moving on to the next thing, we have that posture of hurry, we can't actually receive the rest that we need to. It's why you come back from vacation, you need another one. It's because you're so focused, and I'm so focused on being busy and doing the thing and making sure that things are Instagram worthy, right, for the thing. Because if it's not on Instagram, you didn't go on vacation. Anybody? Okay. All right, so we miss out on it. Somehow hurriedness sucks the joy and the peace out of our life. That posture of hurriedness, it just wears on us. And Jesus' invitation and what Jesus modeled was the absolute antithesis, the opposite of being hurried. Jesus understood that when it comes to following him and what he wants for us in this life is in understanding that we're going to be busy, but that we shouldn't be hurried. And then when we can slow down and even take a deep breath, that we can experience all of the goodness that this life has to offer. So I would say, really the point of this message is very much this, is that for you and I to experience a full life, we must adopt the lifestyle of Jesus. For you and I to experience what it looks like to be busy without being hurried, we've got to look to the person and life of Jesus. And here's just what's true for me and for you is that we can look at Jesus' life and understand that he's busy. In fact, Jesus was quoted as saying, I am here to be about my Father's business. I'm here. I have an agenda. I have a ton of stuff to do. I have a million people that want to meet me. There's so many things to do. Jesus himself was busy, and yet he avoided a posture of hurriedness and slowed down enough to connect with the lowest in the least. Jesus modeled a life through these 4 kind of rhythms that I want to help our church with, that I'm trying to help myself with right now. Jesus understood that in this life, we're going to be busy and we're going to have a ton on our plate and a ton of things that feel like burdens that we have to carry. And burdens and busyness aren't bad when we have the healthy structures in place and the healthy relationship with our Heavenly Father to give us the fuel that we need to carry the burden. In Matthew, Jesus talks about this idea that in this life, there's going to be burdens that we carry. Jesus invites us in the midst of carrying those burdens to experience his love in his presence. He says this, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." I'm so grateful that Jesus speaks this way all throughout the New Testament, where he embraces the reality of my human existence and yours. Jesus knows that in this life, there are going to be moments, maybe you're sitting in right now, where you're like, yeah, I'm weary and burdened. I'm exhausted. Christmas did not feel like rest for me. I'm so tired. Jesus goes, the invitation of my presence is that you can come to me and you can find rest. Jesus goes on. He says, take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart. You will find rest for your souls. When I did student ministry back in the day, we were unpacking this verse, and a middle school boy goes, why is this verse about eggs? It's like, what? He goes, yeah, yoke. I was like, no. Jesus is not saying to bathe yourself in eggs. Hold on a moment. So hopefully you weren't thinking that either. What Jesus is saying is that he's using an agrarian term, a farming term that people would have totally understand. Jesus is saying there's going to be a level of busyness and a level of burden that you're going to experience. You're going to have to work. You will wear a yoke. There will be something that you and I carry as followers of Jesus. The promise of Jesus is not no yoke. It's lots of yoke. And that there's going to be a burden that you and I have to carry. But Jesus goes, hey, when you spend time with me while you're working, if you would be in my presence, if you would stay with me for a little while and learn from me and model your life after my life, you will find rest for your weary heart. Jesus capstones this idea in the final verse of this passage. He says, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. That somehow in the midst of doing things, that somehow in the midst of carrying a yoke, and when you're carrying a yoke, as an animal, if you're yoked to something, you're pulling some weight, you're plowing a field, you are doing things. Again, being busy isn't bad, but when we're hurried, we experience a level of exhaustion that feels like the heaviest burden we could ever carry. And Jesus goes, hey, my way of doing things, my way of living, you're still going to work, but it's going to feel easier, and the burden is going to be lighter. So there's 4 things that I want to hit quickly as we wrap up our time together that I feel like that I've seen Jesus model throughout his ministry. 4 things that if we could add as rhythms to our life would, I think, dramatically change the way that you experience 2026 and the way that your family experiences you. Because at the end of the day, whether you're a mom or a dad, a husband or a wife, a roommate, you're just a sister or brother, whatever you are, you and I are thermostats, not thermometers. We set the climate everywhere we go. And when you're hurried, the climate that you set around you, it's just not good. It's not good for you, and it's not good for those around you. We have this staff value here at Anthem, and it embraces this idea that balance is a myth and rhythm is the goal. Balance is a myth and rhythm is the goal. I meet with so many couples and so many families that are absolutely exhausted because they're trying to figure out balance. Balance is impossible, but healthy rhythms should be the goal and are absolutely possible, and Jesus modeled it all throughout his ministry. He modeled it through silence and solitude, which is the first of the 4. Silence and solitude. This is something that I have had to work on so diligently. I joke about this all the time, but it's so true. I'm ADD, X, Y, and Z. I got the whole thing. It is so incredibly hard for me to turn my brain off, and I feed it all the time with more distractions and books to read and things that I'll never do that I'm studying. Like, I am always going a mile a minute, and there's always noise, and there's always opportunity for distraction. There's always opportunity for me to learn something new or to do something next. And silence and solitude has been such a core part of my walk with Jesus. Some of you know this. I start every morning, and the very first thing I do is I walk out on our back porch, and I just sit in a chair in the quiet for 10 to 15 minutes. No phone, no Bible, no nothing. Just sit in the stillness and the quiet. There's something that God does in those moments where I can hear his voice so much more clearly. Not his audible, literal voice, but I can feel him ministering to my heart and my soul and reminding me that he's there. And when you and I don't have silence and solitude, we absolutely miss out on the opportunity to experience God's presence in our life. When you and I don't have some rhythms of just things being turned off and being quiet in our home, we miss out on the opportunity to connect with other people. And it's true as well for our relationship with God. Jesus, in one of his most tense moments before he's about to be arrested and crucified, he goes into silence and solitude. He tells his disciples to stay in one place, and he goes off into the quiet of the garden in the most tense and terrifying moment of his life. He does what you and I ought to do, but we don't. He seeks silence and solitude and experiences the presence of God in the midst of his most terrifying moment. The other thing that Jesus models for us, a rhythm that we can put into our life, is Sabbath. Sabbath is this idea of pressing pause on all the things that distract us and keep us busy, and to invest deeply in presence, to invest deeply in turning off all of the noises and the sounds, and to not focus on work, and to spend time with the people that God's given us, not just in our family, but inside of our church family, to be able to sit in a posture of gratitude, to sit in a place of worship like we just got done doing. And just so you know, showing up to church on Sunday for an hour and listening to me talk at you for about 35 minutes is not Sabbath. This is the beginning of it. This should set the tone for how the rest of your day goes. And it's so easy for me and you to leave here and be like, okay, we got to go to Target. We got to do the thing. We miss out. We miss out on what Sabbath is supposed to be. This opportunity for you and I to press pause on all the stuff and to experience the stillness and rest and celebration of who God is and what he's done and how deeply he wants to connect with me and you. Jesus very much focused on the Sabbath. He made sure that people understood that the Sabbath was something that needed to be a part of the rhythms of our lives, not just for an hour on Sunday, but for a whole day, to press pause on the things that are exhausting us and keeping us busy, and to focus on something more and something better. The third thing that Jesus modeled was simplicity. Jesus modeled a life that was focused on the things that really matter and none of the things that don't. In our world today, and in my world in particular, this is hard for me. If you look at my garage, you would go, you don't know what this means. You need Marie Kondo at your house now. And it's true, I do. In fact, the only Christmas gift my mom gave me this year, because now it's all about baby Joshua, that's where we're at, which is totally fine, was label magnets so that I can organize my garage and my tools. I was like, we've arrived, we're here, I get magnets for Christmas now, She's like, your garage is a mess, it's terrible, you need these magnets. I was like, thank you for that. I don't even know what simplicity looks like. I have way more stuff than I need, and I'm trying to get rid of so much stuff right now and just simplify our life, because it just makes me feel more exhausted than I should. Simplicity looks like, for me and for you, just saying no to chasing down the new and the next and the bigger and the better for the sake of what's good and what's great in our lives right here and right now. And the last rhythm that Jesus shows us is this idea of slowing, of moving more slowly, of slowing down the pace of our life. You can ask our staff, I move at a pace that sometimes we're like, hey man, chill out a little bit. I can just go. And when I do, I miss people. When I move at a high rate of speed, my wife feels like she hasn't seen me in a week. And I'm like, I've been there. I was in the house. I experienced the same air conditioning that you did. But man, when I don't slow down, when I'm moving at the pace that I can move at, I miss my wife and she misses me. I miss out on the opportunity to have amazing conversations with people, because when they're talking to me, I'm always thinking about the next thing that I need to do. These four rhythms, if we can own solitude and Sabbath and simplicity and slowing in our lives in 2026, I promise you, it is going to change your marriage. It's going to change your relationship with your kids. It's going to change your workplace. And my goodness, is it going to change your relationship with your Heavenly Father? Because here's what solitude does. Solitude allows us to move forward. It allows us to move from distraction to attention. Solitude, when we turn all the things off and we just quiet what's going on around us, it moves our mind and our hearts from a place of distraction and thinking about everything else that we could possibly think about to turning our attention towards what's meaningful and turning our attention to the voice of God. Sabbath does something incredible for us as well. It moves us from production and focusing on doing and performing and earning and growing. All things I love, by the way. It moves us and gives us the opportunity to experience presence, to be present and to experience the presence of others. When we have Sabbath and when we go, hey kids, we're going to block out Friday or Saturday or Sunday. I don't know what your thing is, but we're just going to block out these 4 hours and it's our Sabbath time. Phones are in jail. We're whatever the thing is that you need to do. It allows us to experience presence in a unique way. Simplicity allows us to move from accumulation to contentment. This is so easy for me and you. We're like, and I'm just as guilty of this. I want new floors in our house so bad. And if I'm not careful, I'll just figure out ways to get new floors tomorrow at the expense of my relationship with people and maybe my job here at Anthem and my ability to connect well with people. I'll just keep hustling and grinding so we can make new floors happen. But do I really need new floors? Not really. There's something about simplicity and being able to do more with less that allows us to have a posture of contentment. And lastly, slowing down and just moving more slowly through life to kind of reject the pace of our world that exists around us allows us to move from frenzy to peace. My goodness, so many of my friends that have a bunch of kids and like I said, you've become mom's taxi and there's a million sporting events. There's so much to do. You absolutely know this word well. This word just kind of feels like a close friend, and this word feels like a distant stranger. As you and I, as we find a way to find silence and solitude and to slow down and to build a different pace and to build Sabbath into our rhythms, peace enters this scenario, not just into our homes, but into our hearts. It enters into the experience of our kids and our husbands and our wives and the people that are around us. When we can model these rhythms, it makes such a huge difference. In 2026, you and I, we've got to take some steps to eliminate the things from our life that are making us exhausted. And I don't know about you, but I'm exhausted. And I bet you are too. And it's not because you're busy. It's because you're hurried. It's because you haven't allowed your heart and your mind and your soul to slow down enough to engage with and connect with the people and the gifts that God has put all around you. You and I, this year, we've got to eliminate the things that are exhausting our souls. Not so much rearranging our schedule. Maybe you do need to rearrange your schedule. But you and I have to build some rhythms into our life because balance is a myth and rhythm is the goal that allows us to experience the presence of people that God's put around us and the presence of God as well. A couple days ago, I stumbled onto a poem that I just want to read as we wrap up our time together, that as I was kind of thinking about this content, that I found this poem and it really it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And it's a poem that doesn't rhyme. I don't know how that works exactly, but nonetheless, it's an excellent poem. And it was written by a woman who's unknown, but she was in her 80s. And this poem is titled Love Letter to Right Now. And she writes this poem as if she's back in her body at 38. And she's writing this poem as if she got to experience being 38 just for one more day. I used to rush through mornings, but not today. I see my children, I pull them close and I hug them tight. I kiss their messy hair, I hold their little hands, and this time I soak in every second. I catch my reflection in the bathroom mirror. No deep lines, no gray hair, my younger face. I used to think I looked old at 38. What a silly thought. I stare for a moment and think, and then say out loud, you are so beautiful. I find my husband in the kitchen making coffee. He looks strong and young. I wrap my arms around him so tightly. I let my head and the weight of my body be supported by him. He looks surprised. Maybe we didn't hug enough back then. We talk about the day, nothing big, but today it all feels so big. I memorized the sound of his voice again. It's been so long since I last heard it. We pile into the car, kids arguing over seatbelts. Someone drops a snack, there's crumbs everywhere. I used to get so frustrated in these moments, but today I soak in the noise, the chaos. I know tomorrow my car will be quiet and spotless again, but I'll miss the mess. I'll miss this mess. Dinner is loud and unorganized. No one wants to sit still. They're shouting, giggling, a little arguing, and so much life. I don't clean up right away this time. I just sit and watch, trying to burn it all into my memory once more. And before bed, I pick up the phone and I call my mom just to hear her voice. I haven't heard this voice in so many years. I close my eyes and let her words wash over me, and I tell her again and again how much I love her and that I never want to hang up. And this time, I don't leave anything unsaid. That night at bedtime with my kids, I don't skip any pages in the storybook. Not tonight. I read every single word. And then I'm the one who asks, can we read one more book? And they say yes. I don't want this day to end. I guess it all mattered so much more than we ever realized. Years ago, I heard this idea, and I think it's just so true for me and for you, and this poem just beautifully encapsulates it. When you and I see how much time we have left, it tends to make what matters matter more. When you and I begin to get to this place in our life where maybe we're on the other side of the years being in our favor, we begin to have this shift in perspective, and it changes our perspective and our posture about how we see the things that really matter, and we see the busyness and the investments of our time. Some of you have experienced this in the past year as your kids have left home and they've gone off to college, or maybe your kids are really busy and they're grown up and they don't call as much as they used to, and it breaks your heart. And it puts in perspective for you all of the messy little moments that didn't fit perfectly into a box. And busyness feels less important than being present. Because you don't want to miss it. Because this life goes by so much faster than you and I can ever wrap our heads around. So this year, as we move into 2026, I just want to challenge you to ask yourself this question. What is one no that will protect your yes to God? You have said yes to so many things. You have said yes to being a husband, or said yes to being a wife, or a mom, or a dad, or you said yes to being a friend or a whatever it is. There are so many things that you have said yes to, and your hurriedness has gotten in the way. Not your busyness, but your hurriedness has gotten in the way for you experiencing the fullness and richness of life the way that Christ designed it. So maybe for you, there's some things in your calendar you do need to fix. Or maybe there's some new rhythms that you need to put in place this year that will allow you to slow down and to not miss the moments that God has given to you as a gift. That whatever the thing is for you, it's your pursuit of what's next, or your pursuit of what's more, or your pursuit of distractions, or whatever the thing is, that it has pulled you away from experiencing the richness of the goodness of God in your life and the richness of the gifts that he's given you in your kids and your spouse and your friends and your home, whatever it is. Would you join me this year in just slowing down and understanding that busy isn't bad, but hurriedness is going to get us to a place when we're 80 years old and we're going to write a poem wishing we'd slowed down enough to experience the goodness and greatness of what is now. To experience a full life, we must adopt the lifestyle and rhythms of Jesus, the lifestyle and rhythms of our King. To value simplicity, to take time for Sabbath, to greatly appreciate silence and solitude, even though it's kind of awkward when we start doing it for the first time, and to model slowness, not just to do it for us, but to model it for our kids so that they don't replicate maybe some of the unhealthy things that we've created. So that when you and I are 70 or 80, or we get to the end of this human experience, that we can look back and say, I'm so glad that I did it that way, that I did it like him. What if you and I did that this year? I bet it would change everything. Let me pray for you. Jesus, it's so easy for us to just experience exhaustion and hurriedness as a result of being busy. God, there's this hierarchy that we're constantly working on of what is needed of our time and our attention and what's really important. And God, there's so many things that we think are important, that I think are important, that just really aren't. So God, would you help me this year and help my friends in the room this year to be more like you in the way that we value time and quiet and time with you, God? Would you help us be more like Mary, where we understand that there's things to do, but we also have to spend time with you and spend time with our kids and our husband or wives or whatever our situation is? God, would you help us make the most of it? Would you remind our hearts even now that you're with us and that you're for us and that you love us and that you've given us this life. We only get one. You've given it to us as a gift. Would you help us just make the most of it so that we have no regrets on the other side? It's in your name we pray. Amen.